Joining me now is the South African commentator, Carol Freeman. We're also joined by Heather Walker, the editor of the South African, which is a newspaper for the South African community living here in the UK. Ladies, it's good to have you on the programme tonight, and what a day as well for your country, Carol. I mean, does it feel like it's the trial of the century that started in Pretoria?
It really has. There's been a huge amount of fanfare all over the social media. People are talking about it, whether they're exasperated or whether they're following the events closely. It is the talking point.
And Heather, I mean, does it feel like the world is also looking at your country as much as what's happening with Oscar Pistorius? And does that feel like it back in South Africa? Are people as excited or interested in it as the rest of the world are, certainly here in the UK?
Yes, I think. Well, it covers a couple of issues that are close to South Africans' hearts, and that's gender violence and the potential for gender violence and crime. And so I think it's something that all South Africans can identify with, and obviously Oscar Pistorius being so famous has really touched people. As far as it being such a sort of spotlight on South Africa, I mean, I feel that they wanted the TV to show that the trial is open justice, but unfortunately there are always things that are going to get in the way. For example, embarrassing start where they couldn't find an interpreter. So that hasn't really reflected too well on South Africa.
But you raised two really interesting points, Heather, and Carol, it'd be good to get your opinion on this as well, because there's only one judge. Unlike in this country, we have a jury, in most cases, has to say, and she has a lot of weight on her shoulders because she's no doubt sending out a very clear message about what she thinks on gun crime and domestic violence, as well as how she's dealing with what effectively is your national hero, right?
Well, judges in South Africa have always had a reputation of being fiercely independent and dispassionate. As far back as during the apartheid system, our judges were even very well respected then. So I think to say that she has a weight, I think she has no more weight than any judge would be facing, and I expect that she will behave as professionally as she always has done. She has a great reputation for being even-handed and dispassionate, and I think that will show through in this trial.
We've had lots of tweets, actually, from our viewers and messages via Facebook. This is from Rachel Catherine. It'd be good to get your opinion on this, Heather. She says, it should be private. Someone's lost their life and the rest of someone else's whole life is being determined on the outcome. The trial shouldn't be televised. It's not a circus or something that should be watched for entertainment. Some decorum and respect for the dead and for the families involved would be nice. Is Rachel right? What do you think?
It's a tough one. I see her point. I think it is, a court case can be an intensely personal experience, especially when someone's died. But on the other hand, like I mentioned, it may be an opportunity for South Africa to kind of claw back some of the credibility. It may feel that it has lost in the sense that, this famous man was allowed to kind of shoot somebody who he loved. So perhaps it's a way of showing the world that, our legal system, our justice system can be respected, and it is a legitimate way of getting justice.
And Carol, Oscar Pistorius, the athlete, the poster child for Paralympians, he has risen from a background which most of us have really struggled with. He lost his mum when he was in his teenage years, and now he's on trial for murder. What do regular South Africans think of kind of the rise and fall of this man?
Well, I think, like all celebrities, people get caught up in the story and in his rise to fame. I think there was a lot of things that were discounted when we were hearing about his propensity for fast cars and for going to shooting ranges.
Have attitudes towards him changed? Are people still sympathetic towards him?
I think there's still a lot of sympathy towards him, but there is also a growing discontent. And this afternoon we saw outside the court protests from women's groups and opposing domestic violence. And I think that drawing the spotlight onto that as a bigger issue in South Africa has also happened.
Because is there a danger that Reva, the woman who's lost her life, gets forgotten about in this a little bit?
Definitely, and I think that's something that her parents feel quite exasperated about. Is that it's all about Oscar, and they are now even fighting supposedly in court for money from Oscar for the loss that, the financial loss that she's brought them.
And Carol, in this country, we don't have to deal with gun crime. We don't have to deal with burglaries as violent as they can be in South Africa. So give us a sense of how he might have been feeling in terms of if he thought there was an intruder, and whether that's something that a lot of South Africans deal with on a day-to-day basis versus if you're living in this country.
Well, it's interesting to note that even the first witness today spoke about having heard gunshots on 3 occasions in her life and being certain that she knew what gunshots sounded like. And she said that she'd heard gunshots within her area before, which is not something I think that British people could possibly relate to.
But in South Africa, could you relate to that?
I have to say, it's never been my experience. I've never heard gunshots in suburbia. But I do know that there have been people I know who've been victims of crime, victims of violence. That said, the tide is changing in South Africa. It is becoming a safer country. The policing is doing a lot better.
Would you agree with that, Heather?
I would. Just a few years ago, I would feel intensely fearful going to bed at night in South Africa. And Carol may not have experienced gunshots, but I'm pretty sure I've heard gunshots on a number of occasions in my neighbourhood where I grew up. Having said that, recently, I wouldn't say I feel unsafe anymore. I actually feel a lot safer in the area where I grew up, and that's definitely something that testifies about the police. Its growing handle on the crime problem.
Okay, Carol Freeman, Heather Walker, thank you very much.